Good morning, students. Students, in the last class we have discussed about two laws in the production process. That is the law of variable proportions and the law of returns to scale. Well, after completion of these two laws, we have completed the first part in the production and cost. That is, production is over. So let us move towards the next part of this chapter is cost. Well, what do you mean by costs? Usually in our day-to-day life, we are going to incur so many of different expenses, right? So the expenses incurred for the basic or necessary goods, the expenses incurred on luxurious good, the expenses incurred on so many different goods that to purchase. So here we are going to spend these many different expenses for the purpose of lead our life. Okay, the expenses what we are going to incur on leading our life, the sum total of all the expenses taken together are going to call as cost, which means the sum of all expenses, the sum of all expenses taken together is called cost. The sum total of all the expenses, whatever expenses we are going to incur in our day-to-day life, okay, the totality or the sum value of all the expenses that we club together, that we merge together, the total amount that what we get, and that is the total cost. Okay, so that is how we are going to just say costs are the total cost. Well, so how it is going to be different in case of production? So that is what we are discussing, right? Production on the one side, costs on the other side. So how this production cost is different from this cost? So it is general term, that is the cost. So if we go for the production, how the production cost will be different? So if we look at into that is what we go for the next one, that is production cost. Production cost. So how the production cost is different from the cost? Friends, very simple. Whatever expenses we used to incur generally, the same expenses which are going to incur in the production process, then that sum of all the expenses which are incurred in the production all together are going to call as production cost. Okay, so I define the meaning here. The sum total of all the expenses which are incurred in the production is called production cost. Is called production cost. That is what? The sum total of all the expenses which are incurred in the production. So as we know that in the production what we do? We convert all the raw materials or the inputs into output. Okay, into output are the finished goods. So while in the process of conversion, whatever the expenses we are going to incur, that expenses itself is going to be called as the sum total of that expenses is going to call as the production cost. Well, so what are the expenses that we incur usually in the production? So as we already seen there, we are going to use some of the factors of production. So what are the factors of production we are going to use there? We are using land, correct? We are using labor, we are using organization, and also we are using capital. So these are all the factors of production. These are very important, right? So all these four factors of production usually we use in the process of production. So by the use of these all different factors of production, we are paying some rewards. So as we already discussed in the last class, that is rewards for factors of production. So for the usage of the land, we pay rent, and for the usage of labor, we pay wages. Well, so for the usage of organization, we have to go with profit, and the last one, by the usage of the capital, we are paying interest. Correct? So the interest, profit, wages, and the rent. So these are the rewards for the owner of the factors of production. One who owns these four factors of production, for them these are the receipts. But here we are speaking from the point of producer. So where the producer is the user, not the owner, is the user. So as he has to use all these four factors of production, then he has to pay these payments. So payments, which means these are the incomes for the owners of these four factors of production, but at the same time these are the expenses or the payments for the producer. So for that reason, the sum total of all these together, not only these, along with some other expenses, and that is how we are going to call production cost. Okay, so this is very simple here. Whatever payments that manufacturer or the producer is going to incur in the case of production, that all together we club once, and then we derive production cost. Hope you clear? Well, so in the same way, as I already mentioned, not of only these, we can also incur other costs. That is our production process. Well, so after this, if we move towards the next one, as we have discussed in the production part, that is production function. So how it is going to be in the cost function. So let us just check it out. Cost function. Well, so what is the meaning of cost function? Well, cost function. Once you recall, what is the production function? So production function is the functional relationship between input and output. That is factors of production on the one side and output on the other side. But here, what we are going to do is, cost of function is we define the functional relationship between cost of production, and output. Output is called that is cost function. Very simple. We just take the functional relationship in between cost of production on the one side, cost of production, and that relationship we are going to check, and that is output. Cost of production and the output. So that usually you can just observe here, these are the two technical words, that is cost of production and output. So output is the independent variable on the cost of production. Why? Because whatever it changes, that is whatever it changes in the output, that influences on the cost of production. But here the cost of production, it's not depends on the that is not influence on the output. Why? Because here the value of output that differs, that influences on the cost of production. Okay, so for that reason, output which influences on the cost of production, where cost of production is depends on the output. If there is any variation, any change in case of output, that influences on the cost of production. Say for example, if there is a decrease in the output, that leads to decrease in the cost of production. If increase in the output, that leads to increase in the cost of production. So these two have positive in nature. Increase in output, that increases in the cost of production. and decrease in output, that decreases in the cost of production by having fixed cost remain constant. Here we are just speaking about the variable factors or which are keep on changing. Well, so this is our about the cost function. So let us move to the other topic in the same chapter, that is after this cost function, let us move towards to the next one, that is the cost that we incur in different time periods, right? So as we have discussed in the production part, that is very short term and long term production process and period that we have discussed. And here what we are going to do, the cost what we are going to incur, that how we are going to incur. So whether we are incurring throughout the year or throughout the 5 years, throughout the 10 years, how we are going to incur. If we are going to incur on different time periods, and how we are going to name these costs. So that is how on the basis of time period we are going to divide the cost into 3 main, and that is how we already know that very short term, short run costs. Very short run costs. Friends, I already given the meaning of very short term period. Very short term, which consists of 0 to 1 year. 0 to 1 year, which means the cost which are incurred in the production process in between 0 to 1 year, then these are going to call as very short run costs. In the production we have already discussed the production which carried in between 0 to 1 year. Production process which carries in between 0 to 1 year, that is called very short term period. But here the cost which are incurred 0 to 1 year, which means within the year, then we are going to call those kind of expenses which are incurred in between 0 to 1 year are very short run costs. Hope you clear? Well, so the same way after the first, the second one in this, that is what? Short run costs. Short run cost. So here short run cost are the cost or the total expenses which are incurred in between 1 to 5 years for the production process. Whatever production that we are going to do, if the production which carries in between 1 to 5 years, during the same time, how many of that is cost or the expenses we are going to incur, and that's what we are going to call short run cost. Which means if the expenses which are incurred in the production process in between 1 to 5 years, that is called short run cost. Correct? Well, so come to the third one in the same, that is long run costs. Long run cost. Long run cost. So here long run cost, remember again the production process. Long run, which means over and above 5 years. If the production process which carried on over and above the 5 years, that is called long run period. But here as we are discussing the long run cost are the costs which are incurred in the production process over and above 5 years. So that is how above 5 years. Above 5 years. If the expenses which are incurred in the production over and above 5 years, then we are going to call them as long run costs. Clear? So on the basis of time period, the costs are going to be incurred in different time periods. That is very short run cost, and long run cost. Usually, friends, in the production process, no firms, maximum of firms are not going to concentrate on very short term. Why? Because as per the going concern, that to continuity of the business, they focus at least short run cost and also long run cost. As we observe, many of the firms are not going to target on very short run cost. Why? Because their intention is not to produce within the year. Obviously, whatever they produce, they target more than 1 year at least. So for that reason, so maximum of the firms wherever you are going to see are going to be on very short run cost and the long run costs. Okay, so this is on the basis of time period. Well, again in the cost we can see so many different concepts, so many different classifications. Well, so come to the first one in that concepts of cost. Here we are going to with the concepts. Broadly, we are going to divide the cost into two. That is what we name concepts. Concepts of cost. Friends, here the concepts of cost have been divided into two, as I already told to you. That is, one is explicit cost. Explicit cost. The other one is implicit cost. Explicit cost and implicit cost. So how these two are different, or whether these two are same or different in the production? Well, so here these two are totally changed. These are not similar. These are totally opposite. So how these two are opposite? Let us see one by one now. So firstly, if I go with the explicit cost. Explicit cost. How do you say, what is the meaning of explicit cost? Friends, explicit costs are the out of pocket cost, or these are also called out of pocket costs. Out of pocket cost, which means these are the costs which are paid by the producer for the purpose of production. So as we already seen, rent, that is what salaries, wages, material expenses, license fees, insurance, whatever the fees are the expenses incurred by the producer out of his pocket, out of the business, then we are going to call them as an explicit cost. And usually these costs are going to record in the normal accounting. These are going to record in normal books of accounts. Normal books of accounts. So usually whatever expenses of these, that is what we call the explicit cost, which have been incurred by the producer, are going to record in the books of accounts. Okay, so that is how these are the costs, out of the pocket costs, which are paid by the producer in the manufacturing of different goods or in the production. Okay, so this is how. So many questions may ask on this. Explicit costs are called as dash, out of pocket costs. Done. So come to the second one in the same way, that is implicit cost. Implicit cost. So implicit costs are those costs which are also called opportunity cost, and usually these are not going to record in the books of accounts, because these are the opportunity costs of the resources owned by the firm. Owned by the firm. Usually these, whatever the costs are going to incur here, these resources already owned by the firm or the manufacturer. These are related to the firm, which are considered as our own. So we are not going to pay any rent for our own building, isn't it? So in that point of view, these are the owned resources, the expenses which are incurred on owned resources. So for that reason, we are not going to treat these as the expenses. Of course, even these are treated as expenses, but usually these are not going to record, not recorded. These are not going to record in the books of accounts. Not recorded. Record in the books of accounts. These are not recorded in the books of accounts. One example, as I already mentioned here, opportunity cost. So take for example the owner who is unable to generate more resources from his own resources, then he can also act as a manager in another firm so that to increase his wealth. Means he is going to sacrifice one that is what resource in order to gain so many other resources. That is how comparison he does, and on that basis he is going to utilize the resources as well as he wants to make the wealth maximization. Okay, so this is how the explicit costs are different from implicit cost. Explicit costs are the cost, the expenses which are paid by the manufacturer for the production out of his pockets, that is from the business. So the same way, implicit costs are those costs which are the expenses incurred on the self-owned or the business-owned or that is what firm-owned resources. And that is how here we are not going to record these in the books of accounts. Well, so these are what we expected to discuss in the class. We have done. So remaining things, that is the classifications, very broad concept, very different, that is what different classification types of costs we are going to see. Let us study them in the next class. Until, stay at home, be safe. Thank you so much.